Okay, we are continuing our work on our hand illustration by moving on to the planning and reference portion of the third layer, which is our tendon and muscle layer in our hand. We had talked about this as we started. Hands are very bony. They have very little in terms of meat on them. So I can see and feel the bones in my hand. So I have reference for where these bones are. And I can also feel that there isn't a lot of like muscle structure. The top side of my hand is primarily tendon attached to the bone. I start to have some muscle on this top side in here in this fleshy section and in between my fingers. The rest of the muscly portion is down here on the palmar side of my hand, where you have these like fleshy pads, and those are muscle layers. So the rest of what's inside your hand, in addition to bone, is tendon and ligament and some connective tissue. And there's not a lot, like I said, there's not a lot of meat on a hand. In Google Classroom, I have posted several references for you where there is both the top of the hand and the palmar surface of the hand and how to draw that. I will also post for you some actual hand anatomy, which is a little harder to understand when you're new to looking at kind of some of these structures as a photograph instead of an illustration. So we can kind of quickly see the importance of medical illustration when we see an actual cadaver photo, that the photograph of the physical structure of the human body can be complex to look at. And if you don't understand what the general tissue differences are, it can be hard to kind of make sense of what you're looking at. And so it is one of the reasons why, even with cameras now, medical illustration still is an incredibly important field, because we can make sense of things more quickly in an illustration than we can in a photo. But I will post these for you so that you can see the actual hand. It is important that you recognize whether or not you're drawing your hand from the top up, which we call the dorsal aspect. So this is the dorsal aspect. This is the palmar aspect. So you do want to make sure that you're drawing the muscles and the ligaments from the correct direction, just depending on what your hand, like the pose is. So my illustration is palmar aspect. So I'm going to be drawing it from the face up version. And I have, like I said, several references of these posted in Google Classroom for you. You are certainly welcome to also look up your own reference as needed. That's entirely up to you. We talked a little bit about this last week. I'm going to grab a new sheet of the kind of tissue papery, translucent paper. The reason we go from the outside all the way to the bones is that the ligaments and tendons and muscular structures sit on top of these bones. And so I'm going to use the bones now to guide my drawing of the muscles and the tendons. So I'm taking my new sheet of paper over the top. I am looking at my reference. It is on the screen in front of me on my Chromebook, so that I am looking at it all the time. So I can show you that. It's here. It's in front of me. I also have the medical book right next to me. So you're going to see me draw You're not going to necessarily see the reference, but it is here, and I am looking at it the entire time. So one thing, my hand is from the side, and so this is that kind of muscly structure, and it attaches here to the knuckle of my thumb and pulls this way, right? It's part of what blocks some of my bones here. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that right over the top. There is a ligament that comes down the side here. And it looks like it connects out here to the wrist. There is also a ligament sheet here that sits and goes across. So as I'm drawing some of these things, you'll notice I'm making some indication on my illustration as well of structure, right? We're gonna shade this using a pen. And so I'm gonna use some hatch marks to kind of indicate muscle layer and how it connects to the tendony layer. Muscles or tendons in the thumb. Let's see. That would be the palm, the finger side. So this is going to connect up. And I have a couple of different views, just depending on your illustration. Again, if you are frustrated and can't figure out how to draw yours, please let me know and I will assist in any way that I can. So as I look at kind of these ligaments, they come sort of up the center of my bone. I'm gonna draw, it's like a wide, it reminds me kind of a wide ribbon. So I'm gonna draw that part first because it kind of goes up the middle of each of my bony layers. There is a layer of what I'm gonna call like wrapping tissue that happens here at the, let's see, up here at the knuckle. So I'm gonna draw that. And I'm just going to, just like I did last week, I'm going to kind of work my way from one portion to the next, building these like building blocks of my hand illustration. I assume there's one here on my thumb as well that I cannot see. Might be smaller. I'm gonna have to double check the other, my other reference photo. So you will find that you'll have to go from one reference photo to the next. As we move up these, we have some skinnier sections and we have some pieces that are multiple and we have some crisscrosses. And remember, this is the palmar side. It will look a little different from the dorsal side. I also have these little muscle sheets that pull in between. So I'm going to go ahead and draw those as well. And I'm just going to continue my muscle section just the same way I did with the bones until I have a completed drawing. Tomorrow we'll talk about moving these to our final paper and how we shade using some different pen techniques to give the different portions of the illustration a little different personality and have them stand out a little bit differently. So today your job is to draw your muscle and tendon layer into your illustration.